creating the details page. In this video, we're going to create the service provider's details page. So we'll also provide the route, create the route and the controller to handle the request. And this page, we're going to show the details information such as the company name, the description, tagline, and the address information. So let's go and create this feature. Okay, so here on the back in the code here, I'm going to go ahead and run this application first. So I'm going to go to Command Terminal, navigate to the back end, and just run it. Node-mon. All right, so it's running on port 3000. Let's review in the browser. So here we go. I'm going to refresh it. And so, okay, this is what we had earlier, and the home page, and so on. I want to fix a few things first before we go ahead and create the details page. One thing is, if you look at this page on the bottom here, kind of light you see, but at the footer you see there's a lot of white space on the left and on the right side. You want that to, go all the way across to the end of the left and right columns. And if you go here again, you see that much clearer. So the idea is just to, I think, just remove the padding of the page here. So if you press the F12 key to inspect it, you'll see that on the top, the body head here, body tag has a padding of 50 pixels wide. So if I scroll down and if I turn that off, you see that it expands all the way across to the page. And I want that to look like this all the way across. Okay, so let's go and then fix that in the code. So in here, I can close this terminal now. That will be inside the public folder under the style sheets, and then this styles here. Okay, so we have, this is the default setting by when we create the Express application. So we move this 50 to just say 0. That's all we have to do here. Okay, and if I save that now and go back to the browser, and if I refresh it, so there you go, everything is very smooth now. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now, if I go back to the login or maybe the register page, I mentioned earlier that these two buttons down here, they kind of look odd the way they look here. I want to put a button for each of these kind of similar to the register button here. So maybe Google will have a red background and Facebook has a kind of dark blue background and so on. So let's fix that really quick. All it takes is just basically a CSS. So here, I'm just going to add maybe something like, I think we had like a button, I think we call it a button, I forgot what it was, let's see. So right here, let's do a F12 key, and I think the code we already have it as a button Google and button Facebook. Yeah, so BTN Google, BTN Facebook, and BTN user, I guess we can make some padding around it to those three classes here. Okay, so so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so the BTN, we'll do the Google first. And I just have something like a color, well, the text color will be just white. You can just put FFF here. The background color, we want that to be red, so you can just dark red or just do red is fine, I guess. Just put red here, you can use anything you want, but just put red. It's the border, what should you use border for? Just white. Okay, so the same for Facebook. Just gonna copy that, put it down here, and we'll just change it to BTN Facebook. The color instead of red, maybe just like blue or dark blue, maybe dark blue for Facebook, and the border is fine. So the other is the button. I think it's called the button user, and let's see, BTN user, and I'm gonna put in here. What is it? I think it's in the form, so I'll put here the form. Let's call it form.user and then BTN user, I guess, something like that. And I'm just going to choose the font size to maybe like 0.8, make it responsive. And then the border, I want to make the radius, the curve. You could just use the default for Bootstrap. I want to just modify this a little bit. So let's just say, I don't know, 0.7 maybe, and maybe 1 around, something like that. So let's go back to the browser and refresh our page. So it gives you that little nice layout here. This button here looks kind of similar to, if you go to the About page, this button here, kind of same, just a little bit smaller. So it gives you this nice and clean layout. Okay, that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, so let's go and create our views for the description details page. Now, one thing, if I look at this, let's see, in here, so we have the providers router that will take us to the providers route. So this is good. We don't need to touch this file. And so in the routes and the views, we're going to go and create another views for the provider. I don't like the word provider here. I want to make it consistent. So I'm going to change all this to plural. So just right click on it. I'm going to rename these to, say, providers instead of just provider. It's misleading. I'm going to change that. Whatever here and here I think should be fine as is. But I change that to plural. So my routes will be providers as is, which is good. And also here, I don't like, again, the word providers, so it should be providers. Just modify these in here and make it all plural. And then I'm going to open that. I leave that here in the controller as well. And so providers, and providers list. Okay, so we change that there. And I think that should be good. And so, yeah, so that's fine. Okay, so now we are going to create the, one more thing I want to fix is if you go back to the browser, and if you go to the home page, for example, we see that the title of this page is called the Mean Stack Agency in the tab up here. Okay, if you go to the About, you don't see that, right? You just see the URL to that About, so the tab has no name. Same thing here. You see that it's just a link to that. We want to say, if I go to Contact, it would say Contact here. A login would be a login here, just like the home page here, kind of similar. So this is handled by the title that we pass to each of these templates. So I want to change that in the template really quick. So back in here, we go to the providers, no, in the main controller. When we pass to the template, like we did with the title here, I'm going to add a title to each of these. And the title will be just the name of the page. So basically just About, like that, right? And go ahead and just copy and paste this throughout all these pages so that they have their own title. And again, this will be the title of the page. Make it a little bit nice, also SEO friendly. Okay, so here we like forgot password. And this is it, register, login, and then contact. So now it's much nicer. If you save that now, if you go back to the view, you see that if I go to About, it has the About here in service provider. We're gonna change that a little bit. Contact, login, and register, and so on. So it looks much nicer. Okay, so let's go and create the detail information here. So we can close this now. And likewise, in the providers routes, not the routes, but in the controller. Okay, so we have the title. We don't have the title. I have the information here. I'm going to add the title here as well and put it in front. So it just makes more sense to put in the front. Title will be service providers, something like that. Again, this is just going on the tab of the page. It's not going to modify in the template unless we change that. Like I have a title here. So this is the view. If I change that to say service, the title, it's going to go here too, but I'll keep this as is for now. All right, so let's go ahead and make a copy of this providers list, and we'll use that to show the information or the details of each provider. So you can just copy and paste right in here, or just right click copy and then paste right back in here. Doesn't show here very well. I'm just going to go copy and then Control V to paste it. And we'll rename it to, say, providers details.hbs. Okay, so the title will not be at your service. This will be the name of the company. So I'm going to put here, well, for now, I'll leave it as is. Okay, I'll leave it for now. Well, let's just change this for now. Change this details, and this will be a providers, again, providers details. I put that here just in case if you ever need to modify this section. Okay, the columns here will be a little bit different. These have to match our, let me close this one here, our data. So if you go to the models, open the providers, you see that we want to show the ID. We can skip all these and display all of these information about the company to that details page. And on top of that page, what the title of the page will be, we'll put the company name, and then we'll have the description and the tagline on their own separate, boxes above the list of the information. And then we'll list this information in the table, right? We don't have to list the email because it's already included in the provider list template. Okay, so we need like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fields for that table. 2 for the description and tagline on the top, 2 boxes, and then the company name goes on the top. Okay, so let's go in the provider details and change that. I guess we can change that right now. Let me clean that a little bit here. This is what the card is going to be here. So the first one here is going to be ID as is. We'll keep that. This is going to be the address. The first address is address 2, just in case. This is the city, and then state, zip code, and then one more for the phone number. I'm going to copy that, paste it right below it, put here just phone. Okay, so we have 6 fields here, 7 fields. Okay, so down here, now we're not going to do a loop here at all. We're going to pass one individual provider only, so we don't need that loop anymore. Okay, you can remove that. Again, just make sure you remove that down here at the bottom too. All right, so, and then right below that table, I want to put the, maybe not the table, but under the, I think this is the responsive one. Below that, I want to add this button here to edit. So I'm going to copy that, put it right down here for now, because we're going to edit this provider. And so this last column here, I don't need it. We remove that entirely. And now we need to modify these. We need 7 rows, columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me fix that here a little bit. 5, and then 6, 7. I'm going to copy this, add it 2 more times. 6, 7. Okay, so the ID stays. This is the company name. Now, when we pass the data to this template, we're not going to pass the entire list you see over here. Okay, you don't want to pass the whole thing here. You can if you want to, but to access the data, you have to go like provider.id, provider.company.company name, and that's too much, right? So I'm going to pass the ID separately in a separate field, and I'll just pass the company object as the providers, or whatever we're going to call it. And then when we access this data, we'll just say company.something, right? Provider.name.address. And so it's much shorter that way. Okay, so that means when I go and view and provide the expressions, we're just going to say company.something, company.something. So that means in here, it'll be just company dot company name. I mean, not name, but address, right? So here will be company dot address 2. And let me close this over here a little bit smaller. You can have more space here. This is company dot city, and then company dot state, and then company dot, we call it postal code. Have to match the data from the original data source, and then this is company dot phone. So we got that there. And ID is just the ID. We're going to pass it separately as a separate object. I mean the separate field. And I'm going to clean up a little bit. So above here, we have, this would be the company name, right? You don't want that at your service. You want to say something like company.company_name. And it will show up here. And then we have the two cards here. And so I think that looks good. So let's save that for now. And I'm going to change this to say not edit, but edit provider. Okay. So let's save that. Now let's go to the maybe the controller, and let's go to the router first. The routes. Okay, so we have the get page. I'm going to copy another one and paste it right below here. This is the get details page. Okay, so it would be slash, and the link will be details, and you're going to pass in a certain ID. If you pass ID to this page, you want to use the colon plus a field name. You can call it whatever you want after the colon. That means it's a special ID that you pass to this details page, and you can grab this ID here as a parameter in a request object, and you can use this search inside your data inside here and find a matching ID. Once you find a match, return this entire element back as an object, and then from there on you can then process that information and pass that to the controller and to the view. Okay, so we're going to pass an ID. That means URL. You are going to say providers/details/an ID number. Okay, and we're going to pass that to the controller, not list but details. Okay, and we're going to create that in a minute here. So to the details page, save that. Now let's go to the controllers, and we need to do something here. So again, I'm going to copy this really quick, put it right below here, and this will be the details. All right, so then now when we render details, it's going to go to the render, the view called providers, not list, but providers details. Okay, so that looks good. Now, when we pass the data to this template, remember we have, if you go back here, we have the ID and a separate field and the company object. Okay, the company object has all this data. Again, the company object comes from here. We grab everything here and pass it to the view, right? So that means back in here, we need to access the data, the ID. So I'm going to just provide a ID field, and I'll get the ID. This ID here again is coming from this field called ID. If you call it, index, then you call it index or IDEX, whatever that is. Okay, you can access this parameter in the request object. So I would say request rec.params, the parameters, dot the field, and we call it ID. Okay, so that's going to return that ID to the ID here, and I can pass that ID to this object here. So I'll just call the same ID is equal to ID. So that ID will be passed over to the provider, to the view. Now the providers here, again, if you can do this if you want. I don't want to pass provider. I'm just going to put like a company. So I pass in the company, and then here, and not the whole providers, but just one provider, right? You're going to pass that there. And the name, the title, we don't need the title in this case. Actually we do. Yeah, you put the providers details. That's going to go on the tab. And so now how do you get the ID? When you click on that index or that more information, it's going to go to that to this function here, and we're going to find that ID in this list here. We're going to search this list to find a matching ID, and then pull the company information to, or the entire list, basically this element, to a variable here. So you can use that by using the function called find. So I'm going to do here provider. I'm only interested in a single provider, and I'm going to search in this providers list. This providers is the data. So the providers That find, it's a JavaScript function that you can search in there and search for a matching ID. Once you find a matching, then it's going to return the entire element to this variable here. In our case, it would be an element. So I'm going to use the ES6 function. I'm going to pass a variable called provider. You can call it what you want. You can call it I, J, K, doesn't matter. So this is going to be passed to the function, and inside the body of the function, I'm going to check the provider. This provider here means each individual provider, right? So each individual provider, we call it data. Some people call it data. I'm going to find the ID, the matching ID. This part here refers to this property here. Okay, I'm going to get the value here. It's going to match that ID to this ID here I get from the browser, right? So if this is equal to the ID here, if that's the case, then return that element to this provider object. If it's not found, it's going to keep searching that, and the first occurrence it finds, it returns that, and it's done. And that's all we want because our IDs are unique, right? So when that comes in, you have the entire element, just one element of the provider, and they're going to pass that to the view. Again, I don't want to pass everything. I want to pass just the company information. So therefore, when I pass it to the provider, by doing this way is I'm passing the entire element, right? So again, I just want the company information. So therefore here I would say provider.company. I just want that company information to be passed to the view. And I think that should do it. Let's go and find out and see what this will look like. So save that. And I'm just going to remove that a little bit here. Save that and then go to the browser. And let's start from this beginning. Go here. If I click on more information. So here I got the information here being displayed. So the ID here matches this ID. And it returns that address information here for us. Now, the company name is supposed to be showing up here. For some reason, it didn't show up. We'll check out in a minute. The address is not shown because it doesn't have an address, right? If you go back to the providers, well, in the actual data, there's no address too, I think. So if I click on, let's say, GigaShots, so I got the ID here. The information seems correct, and again, it doesn't show the title or the information here. It does show the title, but you've passed that to the provider's detail as the title, but the company name is not showing up. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so that looks good. Now, let's go back to the details template. So all these came through fine. And the company name, I mistyped company name, that's why. Okay, so again, this company variable here is this variable here, okay? We pass the data to this company. So you access all these elements, all this data through this company object or property, just like you did with the ID here. Okay, so in here now, back in the template, we can get the company here and then the information there as well. Let's save and go back to the browser and refresh our page. So there it is. So we got that. And then now let's add the two cards here above this table to show the tagline and description. Now to do that though, I'm going to go into the cards in Bootstrap. If you can go here, search for, go into Bootstrap, bootstrap.com, and go to the components and then click on cards. And I kind of already searching here, I found these two cards that I wanted to display. So I can display here, this would be like a description, and description goes here, tagline and goes right here. I don't need the buttons here, but I need these two cards, which is kind of nice, right? So you just basically copy everything here if you want, or just click the little copy link here and copy that to the clipboard. And we'll save that. And then let's go back to the code. And I'm going to paste it right here below the HR here. So just tab a few lines, copy and paste. And you can just highlight the whole thing here, select everything here, do a tab. It's going to be 2 times. Well, you know what? Shortcut is right click and then just say format document. There you go. Fix it for us nicely. Okay, so this looks good here. I don't need this link here. So I don't need the link. Remove that. And then I don't need the link down here either. So remove that as well. Okay, so the first card is going to be the description. So I'm just going to type in here description. I'm hard-coding these in. You could pass in as a parameter. So for example, you could do something like, description coming from the controller pass as another property here. But I'm just going to put that in here in hardcode. But this information, right, it's going to be coming from the company dot description. And we have that inside the object. So kind of similar down here, I want to change the title to say tagline. And again, it's coming from the company.tagline. So we got that there. So that looks good. Now, this is a row, and this row here contains two cards. One here, one here. And each card is 6 columns wide. So Bootstrap uses a 12-column system. That means half of the card is 6, half is 6. So it takes up a total of 12. Okay, and then I can save this now, and let's go back to the browser, and you can close this now. Refresh this page. So here they are. You have the tagline and the description. It's a little bit too cluttered here, right? So we're going to add some padding here to our boxes or to the table. Either way you want to do it is fine. But I'm going to add it to this row. Remember, this two cards are in the same row, so I'm going to add some margin to this box here. Let's go back to the code, and right here, this is where we're going to add the row. So you see the divider here has the my-4. That's what the padding is for. I mean the margin. The M is for margin, the Y is in the Y margin, up and down, right? So if you want to margin left or right, it will be MX. So NY, I use the same size, -4. That should give us a margin for that as well. And so while I'm here, I'm going to copy this, maybe just this 2 here, and I'll use that to wrap my button on the bottom. Remember I had an edit button here, so I'm going to put it right in here, and I'm going to close the 2 divs. Okay, and it's going to shift that over a little bit. Okay, so and I want to center this inside this div here. So remember, I use only 6 columns. I want to use entire 12. Okay, so I'll show you what that means in a minute. So text center, I'm going to center that, and this is, I think this is good enough. Now the has 4 margin left, top, bottom. That's fine. Let's save this and let's go to the browser and refresh our page. All right, so it looks good here. So notice here the button here is center, but it's only centered within this box, right? I want to center an entire page here. That means I need to increase the column to not 6, but all the way to the end of this column, which is 12. And so I will center my edit box right in here. So right in here is pretty easy. I can just say instead of 6, let's put 12, and that should do it. Now this is a small button. I'm going to change it to a medium size, maybe a MD for medium. If you're large, you can put LG there if you want, but I think medium should do fine for me. Okay, so back in the view, refresh it, and there we go. Looks good. Okay, so let's go back to the server providers page. I can go and click on more information on the third company here, and it got that information the way I want it. My tag inscriptions are all here. And if I click on the edit, it takes you to the edit with the ID. If I go here, I can also get there by going to the edit function here as well, button here as well. So that looks good to me. All right, so in the next video, we'll create the service provider edit page to update data.